Hello, I'm Geraldine Warren, a longtime Medfield resident and an estate planning and elder law attorney here in Medfield. Many of you may have seen my 5-part series on estate planning that has been airing on Medfield TV. Today, however, I am going to talk about the Affordable Care Act of 2010 by giving you an overview of each title within the Affordable Care Act and the timeline for when these changes have occurred or will happen. Finally, I will introduce Paul Bagan, another Medfield resident and partner of the incentive group, who will discuss with us changes in long-term care insurance and employer-based insurance. By way of background, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, known as the Affordable Care Act, and some people call it the Obamacare, was signed into law on March 23, 2010 by President Obama. The act was challenged and the Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act on June 28, 2012, at which time the justices decided that the individual mandate could stand as a tax, meaning that beginning in 2014, Americans who do not have health insurance must pay a $600 tax. Also, on the Medicaid expansion provision, they did find that the government had the right to expand Medicaid, but could not withhold funding to states who chose not to expand their program. Now I'm going to go ahead and review the actual Affordable Care Act title, all 10 of the titles. And it's going to just be an overview because, as many people know, it's a 2,700-page act, and there's many sections under each title. So this is just going to be an overview of each title. Title 1, Quality Affordable Health Care for All Americans. This title fundamentally changes the nature and operation of private health insurance in the United States. Beginning in 2014, no health insurer will be able to sell insurance or rate coverage based on an individual's medical history. Also, most Americans will be required to obtain health insurance, and substantial financial subsidies will be available to those moderate to low-income individuals that can't afford health insurance. Most states will operate what's called new health insurance exchanges. This will make shopping for health insurance easier. The hope is that these exchanges will make rates competitive. Also, I will mention when we go to the timeline that in October of this year will be when the application is online and that you can, if you choose to, go into the pool. Title 2, the role of public programs. This title creates substantial changes in Medicaid, which is the federal state program for many low-income persons. Here in Massachusetts, you're probably familiar with it. It is called Mass Health. Beginning in 2014, all lower-income individuals will be able to enroll in their state's program. So currently, you had to fit into a category, whether you were a child or you had a disability. But under this title, it's going to be just for anyone in low income, moderate to low income individuals. Now we're on Title 3, Improving the Quality and Efficiency of Health Care. This title establishes new mechanisms to improve the quality of medical care in the United States by making it more efficient and effective and more patient-based. Medicare will be improved with the addition of new preventative benefits for enrollees, and Medicare D will become more affordable for the seniors. Again, I will discuss the changes in Medicare D on the timeline. Also under Title 3, as a result of this, they're hoping that as Medicare becomes more efficient, that the cost will go down, and this will help pay for the Affordable Care Act. Title 4, Prevention of Chronic Disease and Improving Public Health. Title 4 is the most ambitious law ever passed to promote healthier lifestyles for all Americans and to prevent disease and disability. A new council will be formed. It will be called the National Prevention, Health Promotion, and Public Health Council. The Act allows for $13 billion to be put in a trust fund to enable the Council to devise clinical preventative services in most insurance policies without cost sharing. Also, in the in prevention of chronic disease and improving public health, chain restaurants will be required to post caloric intake of all their foods. Now we're moving on to Title V, the healthcare workforce. Under Title V, this title will establish a National Healthcare Workforce Commission to analyze and plan workforce needs and to make recommendations to Congress and the administration. Support through grants and scholarships are provided to expand the needed workforce. As I went through the different sections under Title V, I noticed that there are many scholarships and grants that are available to physicians and nurses that are primarily going into primary care. There is also under Title V an expansion of community health centers, and also a service corp is funded. Title VI, transparency and program integrity. This title provides new authority to federal and state agencies to combat fraud and abuse in Medicare, Medicaid, and private health insurance. Drug companies and medical suppliers must report any gifts or gratuities that they are given to physicians, and it must be reported on a federal website. Also under this title, a new agency is established, the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute, which mission is to research clinical effectiveness. This new transparency requirement is also put on the nursing home industry, and an Elder Justice Act provides a national framework to combat violence, neglect, and financial exploitation of senior citizens. Title VII, improving access to innovative medical therapies. Under Title VII, it directs the United States Food and Drug Administration to develop a regulatory pathway to permit development, manufacturing, marketing, and sale of generic-like versions of biopharmaceutical drugs. Its hope is to end the anti-competitive efforts to keep generic drugs off the market. And the hope is to reduce the cost of drugs, for, especially for the seniors. Title VIII. I included Title VIII, but actually the Community Living Assistance Services and Supports Act has been abandoned by the administration. And I did not take it off my poster because it has not been repealed by the legislature. So I thought I would just let the community know what was going to be included in the Class Act. This was going to be an insurance program to provide workers with cash payments and support if permanently disabled. No tax money was to be used, but it was going to be paid for by premiums. And actually, as I read about the Class Act, you would have had to have paid into the premiums for 5 years before you could have applied to receive monies from the Class Act. So that is something that has been abandoned by the administration. Title IX is our revenue provision. This section covers the financing for slightly less than half of the cost of the Affordable Care Act. As I had said in Title III, improving the quality and efficiency of health care, the hopes is that by doing that, we would be able to cover half the cost of the Affordable Care Act. The other cost is going to be through the revenue provisions. The key provisions in Title IX establish new Medicare taxes on increased income wage earners. There's new taxes on pharmaceutical manufacturing, new taxes on health insurance providers, new taxes on the medical devices and manufacturing. And this, again, I know there's been talk in the legislature about changing that tax because they're afraid that it will have an effect on innovation. And there's also going to be an excise tax on high-cost employer-provided insurance, health insurance. Some of you may know that people have called it the Cadillac plans. There'll be a new excise tax on those plans. In addition, there's a 10% tax on indoor tanning services, and there will be changes in your health savings accounts. Title X, I labeled that the reauthorization of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act because mostly in Title 10, you will see that they've reauthorized the health care for American Indians and Alaskan Natives. However, it's also called the Strengthening Quality Affordable Health Care for All Americans in that Title 10, because in that title it includes amendments and additions made to the Affordable Care Act by the legislative branch. So those are basically a synopsis of what's in the Affordable Care Act title by title. And now I would like to go to a timeline and show you what changes have occurred and the time of when things will happen. In 2010, most people know when the Affordable Care Act was signed into law, that the two main things people were aware of was that children were able to be covered even if they had a pre-existing condition. So that was something that took effect immediately. And also young adults up to the age of 26 could remain on their family's health insurance plan. Those were the two main things people had talked about in 2010. But also, if you note that health insurance plans had to cover preventative services at no additional cost to you. There should have been no copay for certain tests. Individuals with new group individual private insurance plans do not have to pay deductible and other out-of-pocket costs for certain preventative care services. Also, insurance companies could no longer drop your coverage if you got sick, and insurance companies could no longer put a lifetime dollar amount on your health coverage. And that's what took effect on the signing of the Affordable Care Act. In 2011, Medicare Benefits expanded to include free coverage for wellness and preventative care. Also, it became easier to file complaints about the quality of care in nursing homes and better access for information on nursing home quality and residents' rights were available. In 2012, people with Medicare got a 50% discount on brand name prescription drugs and a 14% discount on generic prescription drugs while in the donut hole. And as many people know that are on the Medicare Plan D, the donut hole is basically a coverage gap. And when you're in that coverage gap now, you can get some relief. And that started in 2012. I'm now going to move on to what's current. So in 2013, people with Medicare Part D get a 52.5% discount on brand name prescription drugs and a 21% discount on generic prescription drugs, again, while they're in that coverage gap, or as people call it, the donut hole. And finally, in 2014 is when the Health Care Act goes into full effect. And I've listed most of what's going to happen. Exchanges will be offered for health insurance coverage. And I mentioned that in October of this year is when the application will be out for you to, if you're interested in being in the pool. There are also premium subsidies available for those with limited incomes who can purchase health insurance through the exchange. More people who have limited income are able to apply for Medicaid. Again, as I mentioned in Title II, they'll no longer be the category except for income-based. Insurance companies are banned from putting an annual dollar limit on your health coverage. Insurance companies can no longer deny anyone coverage because of a pre-existing condition. So just note, in 2010 it was for children under the age of 19, and now it's for everybody with a pre-existing condition. Spouses of people on Medicaid who receive care services at home get the same financial protections as spouses of those on Medicaid who live in a nursing home. People with Medicare get a 52.5% discount on brand name prescription drugs, so that doesn't change, but it does go to a 28% discount for those on generic prescription drugs while again in the donut hole or coverage gap. In 2020, Medicare D donut hole is completely gone. You no longer have to worry about being in that donut hole or coverage gap. So that's basically the timeline for the Affordable Care Act, what has occurred and what they plan to have happen. And now I'm going to have Paul Bagan join us just to talk about some insurance options that we can have. We're here again now with Paul Bagan from the Incentive Group, and I'm going to introduce Paul to you, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about different insurance options for long-term care. Paul, do you want to tell everyone in the community a little bit about the Incentive Group?
Yes. Thank you, Geraldine. The Incentive Group is an employee benefits organization, and we also provide individual financial services. So we've been very involved in the Affordable Care Act over the last several years. I know one of the questions is long-term care addressed in the Affordable Care Act. And a couple of years ago, the provision, it was called CLASS, Community-Based Services and Support, was removed from the Affordable Care Act. So that's no longer an option that's available.
Yes, I understand it was abandoned by the administration and it's going to be repealed by the legislature.
Yes, and you know, with the cost of the Affordable Care Act as it stands today, I don't see those class provisions coming back into the Affordable Care Act anytime soon.
I would agree with that, just looking at what they're trying to get accomplished. So can you just talk about different options that there are now for long-term care?
Absolutely. And one of I think the important things is to realize is that Medicare does not pay for long-term care services. I guess in very unique situations for rehabilitative services, there may be some very limited cases where Medicare could pay.
Like 100 days, is that?
It would be a maximum of 100 days, but that typically doesn't even come into play.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as someone's considered no longer able to be rehabilitated, then those benefits would end. So it typically doesn't go for the 100-day period.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people have to realize that Medicare is not really an option that would be considered. On the other hand, Medicaid does pay, you know, in many cases for long-term care services. Unfortunately, that's a need-based service.
That's true.
And
you have to show income and also whether you have a health insurance, and then they decide on how much they'll give you. And I know for my elder law practice that there isn't as much available for community people to stay in the community, whereas they're apt to more pay for the nursing home. So.
Absolutely. And so it primarily is a nursing home benefit that's available. And exactly, you have to spend down your assets in order to be eligible for that benefit. So in most cases, at least initially, that's not an option for people. And so a person has a choice if they want to self-insure the risk of long-term care or transfer that risk to an insurance company. And if someone does nothing, they're electing to self-insure, which can wipe out a lifetime savings very quickly.
Very quickly. I know in my practice I tell people, you know, have at least $400,000 available because they see it as almost a 4-year time period for nursing home stays. So usually if you are spending down, you should be aware of the fact that, you know, you should have monies available in case you do need it. But like you were saying before, since it is income-based, you have to spend down to $2,000 if you're just an individual. If you have a community spouse, they're allowed to have up to $109,000. But it really is for low-income people as far as the Medicaid for nursing home care.
Absolutely. So I think Medicaid, what tends to happen is people do end up spending down a lifetime of savings. Mm-hmm. Because nursing home care can cost as much as $350 a day today.
That's true.
And that's an expense that in excess of $100,000 each year. So that's one option. And then again, I mentioned transferring that risk to an insurance company. And for many people, that can be a good
A
solution.
good solution. Can you just tell me, are there different plans available for this long-term care insurance?
Yes, the marketplace really has evolved over the past 25 years. And to start with, there really are two general types of plans. Group insurance plan, a group product, and an individual product. Unfortunately, the group marketplace has gone through a tremendous upheaval in the last couple of years. Many carriers have left the marketplace altogether. So there's only a couple of companies that continue to offer those products today. So it's really an individual product that is most common in the marketplace. And generally speaking, it's working with we call it a bucket of money concept.
Mm-hmm.
So you would begin by choosing a maximum daily benefit. You can choose it from as little as $50 a day to as much as $400 a day.
But in order for it to qualify with the state, like if you didn't want certain things to be countable assets, aren't there state requirements to how much you have to have for coverage a day?
Yes, so there are, if you elect minimum benefits on certain plans, you can be exempt from some mass health coming back and capturing assets.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally you'd want to elect a minimum benefit of $125 a day.
Okay.
And at least a 2-year benefit period. And if you have an elimination period that's less than 365 days, that meets the qualifications of this mass health exemption. So that would probably be a minimum that someone would consider. And the next step would be to look at other income sources that you might have available and determine what it would cost for a nursing home facility that you'd like to choose.
Now, my understanding from people that I have coming into my office that the average cost of a nursing home is like around $10,000 a month. I know Mass Health pays $7,600, I think, a month, but I think isn't that the average cost for private pay, around $10,000?
Yes, I think that's a typical number we would use when considering long-term care needs. And again, that's for nursing home care.
Right.
So when you look at these products, again, it's based on a bucket of money. So you would buy a maximum daily benefit, and then the next step would be to elect a benefit period, how long you want to receive those benefits for. For instance, if you elect a 5-year benefit period, you multiply the 5 years by $200 a day, you're buying a bucket of money of $365,000.
And you can use that for community, to stay in the community as well, right?
You can elect to have that just for nursing home care, or you can elect to have that also be available for home care and nursing home care, or a percentage of that, and that will all dictate what the plan will cost.
Will that affect Mass Health at all? Whether you chose whether it's going to be like sort of a combination community, home care, and nursing home versus just nursing home? Would it matter with regards to the state requirements of what coverage you have?
It would not. It would, if you have the minimum
Of the 125
the 125 minimum benefit starting out, even if you use those benefits for home and nursing home, home and community-based care, that plan will still make you eligible for the exemption for Mass Health.
Okay, that's good to know.
So it
Are the plans that didn't have this coverage that's required today, are they grandfathered in? I believe DeVell Patrick recently signed into law the fact that people that had certain plans, that they'll still be okay for people that want to use them?
Yes, in fact, so that is an exemption that was passed. But going forward, you will be required to have these minimum benefit plans.
That's right.
To meet the qualifications. And carriers are coming out with some hybrid products today. One of them is utilizing life insurance as a contract where you could purchase a single premium life insurance contract where, again, you're getting a certain benefit, and that benefit can be used for nursing home care if you qualify. So again, it's a bucket of money concept, and you're putting in a lump sum of money, but you're getting a much larger bucket that can be used towards
That's really interesting.
nursing home and long-term care, yes. So it's, again, there's unique products that we're seeing. The market is evolving all the time. The cost of long-term care has increased dramatically.
Skyrocketed, yeah.
Over the last several years. We hope it will mitigate some, but we just don't know if it will. So another important component of any long-term care product would be to have some sort of inflation protection, because if you buy a plan today,
It's true.
it may not be sufficient if you're not needing that care for 10 or 15 years from now. So an important component is to consider an inflation protection rider that would make that plan relevant.
What do you use, the consumer price index, or how do you decide what percentage you're going to use for your inflation?
Carriers have a number of different inflation protection riders, and it truly comes down to the cost. Those plans can double the cost of a long-term care plan. So we base it on consumer CPI, but you can also get simple interest plans to make it more affordable.
Okay.
Because the key with any of these is if it's not affordable, it won't stay in force.
That's right. And you want people, if they're going to take out a long-term care insurance plan, to keep paying the premium so that when they do need it, it's there for them. And that's the only concern sometimes I have with my clients, is I want to let them know that, don't stop paying, the premiums when you're older, because you're going to need those, I mean, that's always a concern to me. Absolutely.
Interesting, though, that carriers are finding that people do not lapse long-term care policies.
Good.
The lapse rates for those products are much more favorable than they are with other types of insurance products. So people do see the need, and they do seem to hold on to the products for when they're needed.
That's good. Now, on the hybrid one, do you have an example of how much what kind of plan, like how much you would put into this hybrid in order for it to work? Like, is there a set amount?
There's no set amount. It is based on the age of the insured.
Okay.
And if you put in a lump sum of money, maybe lazy money that's sitting in a CD that's not earning much interest, you can transfer that into the single premium products. You still earn interest on that money, just as it would be if it's in a CD. You get a larger death benefit that, God forbid something happened to you, there's a death benefit available, and that death benefit can be used for long-term care expenses if you qualify based on the activities of daily living. And that money will be available to be drawn down
as needed
on a tax-favorable basis. So.
And then you also have beneficiaries then for any monies that are left after?
Yes, in most cases there's a minimum guaranteed death benefit, so that there would be some payout to a beneficiary, and that makes it for more tax-favored status as a life insurance contract. So again, very unique, and that in combination with a traditional long-term care policy may be the most effective way to fund the need for long-term care services.
Can you give me like an average age, what you see as someone who would come into your office to look into starting a long-term care insurance plan?
Well, I guess the first thought is the younger the better, because one of the important criteria is you have to be healthy in order to get the coverage. Many times people wait to to the late 60s or 70s, and they realize the value and the benefit at that age, but many times it's too late, and they're not able to get it. So a person in their 50s that has gotten past the college years and now thinking about their future and what they're dealing with their parents, many times start considering the need for the long-term care to protect those assets that they've put together.
Okay. Well, I was trying to think of anything else to say. Do you want to wrap this up with?
No, I think that really gives
the community an idea.
An idea of what's out there today in the marketplace. We are seeing lots of changes. Many carriers continue to move in and out of the market, but there are some quality companies, and important to do your homework when you're looking at these types of plans.
To make sure that the plan will still be available when you need it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Paul, so much for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.